To Epitome IAS. So in today's video we are going to discuss another mains question that was asked in the year 2025 General Studies paper 2. So you are able to see the blur among the General Studies papers. Generally this kind of question must be seen in the General Studies paper 4, okay, in the ethics paper, but however this question has appeared in the General Studies paper 2. So you can understand the evolution of examination, how they are going with some holism, okay. So they are going with an integrated approach, okay. So the question here is, doctrine of democratic governance makes it necessary that the public perception of integrity and commitment of civil servants becomes absolutely positive. Discuss, right. First of all, before we write answer for this particular question, let us have some primary impression about the concept that is underlying this particular question, okay. So what can be understood as democracy first of all, okay. So democracy means it is nothing but people's rule, okay. In other words, it is the rule according to the consent of people, according to the consent of people. Public consent is the most important thing in the governance, right. That is why democratic governance means, so democratic governance means governance that must be according to the values of democracy. So governance that is according to the values of democracy, okay. In what sense we can understand the values of democracy? The values of democracy like rule of law, transparency, accountability, okay. So these kind of principles must be necessarily followed in the democratic state, so through the democratic governance, okay. So basically the doctrine of democratic governance primarily seen in the form of Supreme Court judgments, okay. For example, Supreme Court in Delhi Chief Minister versus Lieutenant Governor case. In this Supreme Court highlighted triple chain of accountability, triple chain of accountability in the democracy, right. What is the meaning of triple chain of accountability? It means the elected government, elected legislators are accountable to the people. Elected legislators are accountable to the people, right. To the elected legislators who are accountable, elected government is accountable. Elected government is accountable. To the elected government who is accountable, it is civil servants, okay, right. This is how we need to understand the relationship between the people and civil servants, okay. So elected legislators are accountable to the people, and the government is accountable to the legislators, and to the government civil services are accountable. This is how the democratic accountability can be seen in the operation, okay. But however, this triple chain of accountability cannot explain the actual working of democracy. Why? Because the people may not always be in the interface with the legislators, rather the people will always be found in interface with the civil servants, okay. The civil servants will be having the interface, the people and civil servants will be having the direct interface in the day-to-day working of the government, okay, in the day-to-day delivery of services, in day-to-day regulation of the society. In all these matters, who are in the interface? People and civil servants. So therefore, it does not invite the mediation of legislators, it does not invite the elected government always, okay. So in the ground, this is the ground reality. In this context, the people experience government or state power government or state power, okay, through the working of bureaucracy, through the working of civil servants, through the working of civil servants. So this is what the actual reality, okay. So therefore we can see, particularly after LPG, liberation, privatization, globalization, we are able to see the phenomenon of good governance or governance. First of all, governance. Thereafter, it has been emphasized that the governance must be good governance. Okay. So if you add values of democracy to the governance, is called as good governance, right. So in this context, the second Administrative Reforms Commission, second ARC, has emphasized the governance must be citizen centric. The governance must be ethical. Governance must be citizen centric and governance must be ethical. So it means citizen must be at the center of the accountability, at the center of the service delivery. In other words, there must be some mechanism that the civil servants must be made answerable to the citizens directly, so that the citizens will get satisfied with the governance, or service delivery. Did you get my point? Right. In this context, the role of the civil servants is so critical in the democracy. The role of the civil servants is very much critical in the democracy. Okay. Right. So let us come to this particular question. Right. So doctrine of democratic governance makes it necessary that the public perception of integrity and commitment of civil servants becomes absolutely positive. So the doctrine of democratic governance which envisage the consent of people, acceptance, participation of people in the governance requires the trust of the people over civil servants on account of civil servants, okay, which depend upon the integrity and commitment to serve the people effectively. Right, this should be your introduction. Okay. Doctrine of democratic governance which envisages the consent, acceptance and participation of people in the governance requires the trust of the people over the civil servants which depend upon their integrity, commitment to serve the people effectively. So this is your introduction, right? So what is the relationship between trust of the people over civil servants? What is the relationship between the trust of the people over the civil servants for democratic governance? This is there are two questions we are going to examine as a part of this question. This is one subpart, okay? What is the relationship between the trust of the people over the civil servants for the democratic governance, okay? Okay, right, we can write like this, okay? The democratic governance, since it requires, okay, the democratic participation of people in the governance process, or the governance should be at the consent of the people, or cooperative mindset of the people. It cannot just be possible it cannot just becomes possible due to the mechanical implementation of law. Okay, it is possible only when there exists trust and mutual respect between citizen and civil servant. Okay, so this is how we can understand the context of this particular question. Okay, right. Therefore, the democratic governance must be a departure from the colonial legacy where there was a perception of mastery by civil servants. Civil servants were generally treated as masters, and the citizens were treated as slaves or servants. Okay, so this requires the civil servants must be displaying their commitment to serve the people. Commitment to serve the people. Okay, right. So here the commitment implies not just implementing policy with a detachment with the end goals. He must be proactive, sensitive, and showing dedication to his duty. Right, this implies the commitment. Okay, right. For instance, in public schools, okay, the attendance is low, or the admissions are quite low because of lack of commitment on part of public teachers. Actually, this was also explained by IAS report. Okay, the annual survey on education report also explained this particular thing, right, where 5th class student is not able to read the text of 2nd class student. So this explains the lack of commitment. Okay, and not only that, okay, recently Prime Minister also highlighted this point. Okay, right, the Prime Minister in police conference, in DGP conference, highlighted the fact that in the police stations even today the FIR is not being registered despite the victims make the rounds of the police station, rounds around the police station, right. So this is how you are able to see the lack of commitment to serve the people. Okay, and so even in the public hospitals also there is a kind of apathy among the doctors. Okay, apathy among the doctors. Therefore, we can say Mahatma Gandhi says that we need to take care of the customer who visits our office. He is the real purpose behind this particular office. Even for the government, for any how a business treats his customer, similarly the public officers must also be treating his own customer. Okay, that's the reason why, in order to ensure that commitment of the civil servant towards the people at the larger level, the government has brought the concept of citizen charters, where the public servant needs to be performing his functions in a time bound manner, right. So even government is giving lot of technological tools to ensure the proper control of the civil servants by means of biometric attendance, okay, GPS based tracking of works, etc., right, PDS, e-post mission, like that. Okay, right. Then what else is also important? It also requires the trust, also requires integrity. on part of the civil servant. Okay, integrity on part of the civil servant. Okay, integrity means what? It is a consistency between rules and behavior. Okay, it is also consistency between public life and private life. Okay, so this is the most important thing. This is nothing but the holistic understanding of a personality. That is what called as integrity, right? So that means this warrants he must not be corrupt. The civil servant must not be corrupt. The civil servant must not be must not be indulging in evasion of work. Okay, and he shall not be using the public office for private purpose. So like this, the civil servant must be showing absolute integrity. Okay, only when this commitment and integrity are properly fulfilled, okay, properly displayed from the civil servant, then only you are able to see the kind of trust of the people over the public services and civil services. For example, in the recent times, there were many officers, IAS officers, who are undergoing treatment in the public hospitals. Some officers are also getting delivered for their maternity related things in the public hospitals. So this will create a perception that yes, the civil servants are preaching the same and following the same. The civil servants are preaching that you need to visit the public hospitals for the treatment, and they are doing the same with respect to their own personal reasons. So this increases the trust of the people over the public services. Okay, right? Similarly, certain officers also join their children in the public schools also, where they work, in the district they are working. This also enhances the public trust over the public institutions. Okay, right? So when these two things are there, when the integrity is there, when commitment are there, okay, so that means when the integrity and commitment are displayed by civil servants, okay, the civil service, the public service will become free of corruption, leakages, okay, and negligence or apathy from the civil services, okay, and proper use of public resources, improper usage of public resources. We are saying it will become free of corruption, leakages, negligence, improper usage of public resources, and political partisanship. Okay. So this kind of things, evil qualities will be freed from the civil services. Okay. Therefore, this leads to what in turn leads to enhanced trust over civil servants. For example, people will be voluntarily cooperating with the police agency in the course of law and order management. That is what called as community policing. Okay, and citizens will follow rules and regulations. That means the citizens will also become dutiful. For example, if traffic constables and traffic police are wearing helmet and they are following the road rules and regulations, absolutely, definitely that will increase the commitment on part of the citizens also to follow rules and regulations. They will become dutiful. For example, second ARC mentioned this point, okay, that the citizens must not be aware of the rights, they must also be dutiful. But that thing is dependent upon the quality of civil services, the perception of people over the civil services, okay, right? And there will be more participation of people in governance, okay. For example, people will be showing the inclination to participate in the governance processes in the form of Grama Sabha, okay. And the people will also be, you know, more proactive in terms of social audit related activities, right? This is how you are able to see the perceptible change in the civil servant and the people's relations, okay, right? And moreover, there will be a sense of democracy that can be seen in the day-to-day lives of the people. Because the public services servants will not be promoting anything which is arbitrary or unfair. Fairness becomes the new mantra for the civil services, okay, right? So that's how the people will be seeing a new kind of government, a different kind of government which is differently from that of the colonial rule. But what is the present day's situation is, the civil servants did not change their mindset. The colonial mindset is still hanging in the present governance paradigms. They are not freed from the colonial mindset, okay. So they are thinking that they are the masters over the civil people of the country. And if you try to see many instances such as traffic challenge, you can see in the case of demolitions by the government agencies with respect to some illegal constructions or anything like that, particularly with respect to the habitations of the poor people, and the hospitals, the infrastructure, the education, the quality of teaching, okay. All these give a perception that the civil servants are all having the double standards. With respect to their public life, they are showing one kind of attitude, and with respect to their personal life, they are showing another kind of attitude. This is kind of a gap that is created between the people as well as the civil servants. And as a result, what will happen? People tend to get the discontent, dissatisfaction, and a kind of agitating mindset against the government, okay. So that is the reason why we need to show a kind of a change, a positive change in the attitude of the civil servants. So that means, moreover, the doctrine of democratic governance envisages the civil servants must have integrity and commitment with respect to certain fundamental elements of governance, fundamental elements of governance. For example, you are able to see rule of law, participation, consensus orientation, transparency, efficiency and effectiveness, okay. yes, and inclusivity. Transparency, consensus, participation, rule of law, yes, efficiency and effectiveness, inclusivity. So these kind of values must be respected by the civil servants. They must be having that kind of commitment towards rule of law, participation, okay, transparency, inclusivity, efficiency and effectiveness, okay, consensus orientation. These things must be respected by the civil servants. If they, for example, if they do not follow the rule of law, example, if you see fake encounters, fake police encounters, these encounters generally give an impression that the public servants are misusing their powers. When the public servants are misusing their powers, definitely that will set an example for the people to follow. Similarly, participation. For example, in today's governance, citizen charters just remained on the paper only. The people are not realistically participating in the formulation of the citizen charters. There is a weak connection between the people and the government officials. For example, they do not know what actually people require. Okay, so they simply function outside the expectations of people. Right, consensus orientation. Most of the policies lack the consensus. They simply get imposed on the people. Transparency. RTI is not properly implemented. RTI is implemented with at the convenience of the civil servants. Where they are convenient, they are able to give the information. Where they are inconvenient, they are not giving the information. Efficiency, effectiveness, inclusivity. Okay, so these are also at the danger. That's the reason why the civil servants must be showing integrity and commitment in the day-to-day lives as well as in the public life. Particularly, commitment is very, very important with respect to the last mile connectivity of the public services. Okay, they must be showing devotion to the duty, not influenced by the political compulsions or political reasons. So there the question of integrity also comes into the picture. Okay, so in this way we have discussed this particular answer. Okay, so we have started with an introduction. The democratic governance requires the democratic participation of peoples in the governance process, or the governance should be at the consent of people, or cooperative mindset of the people. It cannot just becomes possible due to the mechanical implementation of law. It is possible only when trust and mutual respect between citizen and civil servant exists. Okay, right. Then the democratic governance must be a departure from colonial legacy, where there was a perception of mastery by the civil servants. This requires the civil servants must be displaying the commitment and commitment to the service, commitment to serve the people. Here the commitment implies that not just implementing the policy with detachment, but with the end goals. He must be proactive, sensitive, and showing dedication towards the duty. For instance, public schools where the attendance is low or admissions are quite low, and that is because of the commitment on part of the public teachers. For example, ASR report we have discussed, and FIRs and public hospitals. The trust also requires integrity, that is holistic understanding of a personality, that is free of corruption, evasion of work, public office for the personal gains, consistency between rules and behavior, consistency between public life and private life. So when the integrity and commitment are displayed by the civil servants, the public service will be free of corruption, leakages, and negligence as well as apathy. And the improper usage of public resources will be prevented, and there will also not be political partisanship, right. Therefore, second Administrative Reforms Commission also says that the citizens should follow the rules and regulations. Not only they always demand for the rights. So it means there must be a kind of a parity between rights as well as duties. But this is possible only when there is a trust of the civil servants, trust of the people over the civil servants. And the enhanced trust over civil servants will be leading to democratic governance. Okay, right. So for example, community policing, Grama Sabha, social audit. Okay, so people will not be just passive beneficiaries of the public services. They will be more proactive and they will be displaying that active citizenry, right? The sense of democracy will be seen in every dimension of the public policy and its implementation. And moreover, the civil servants must be showing themselves to be the relevance of to the dimensions of good governance, like respecting rule of law, participation, consensus orientation, transparency, efficiency, effectiveness, inclusivity in the governance. So these must be respected. Okay, right. So what finally we can conclude? So in the conclusion, the democracy in operation depends upon the role of civil services, where civil servants who are the visible side of government or face of the government, through which people experience the state, experience the nature of the state, requires to be displaying commitment and integrity in the performance of duties, thus upholding constitutional morality, right? So this is how you can conclude the answer. The democracy in operation depends upon the role of civil services, where civil servants who are the visible side of the government or face of government, through which people experience the nature of the state, requires to be displaying commitment, integrity in the performance of duties, thus upholding the constitutional morality. So this is how we can write the answer. Okay, hope that you came to know about the very kind of conceptualization it requires for writing these kind of answers. Okay, so kindly follow Epitome IAS for more informative videos. Thank you.